Hi, welcome to today's video and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about this subject, CPP for couples, and how to maximize your Canada Pension Plan benefits. If you are a couple nearing retirement, I'm going to share with you a strategy that's going to maximize your Canada Pension Plan benefits. I'm going to not just talk about it, I'm going to give you graphs, I'm going to give you math, I'm going to give you a case example of both husband and wife, their incomes, RSPs, TFSA, withdrawals, everything, integration of CPP and old age security. And by the end of this video, you're going to be able to see exactly which scenario in terms of what ages works best for this couple. And I hope that you'll be able to see yourself in this video. So stay tuned, get a cup of coffee and dig into this, because it's going to be probably one of the best CPP videos you've ever watched. At least I hope so. Okay, so let's get into why you're here today. We are going to talk about a number of different things. I think there's 7 or 8 different things you ought to consider that lead up to this CPP. So the first one is really talking about delaying CPP to age 70, but not for everybody. I'm just going to give you the benefits to delaying to CPP to age 70, but what you're going to find is we're not doing that, kind of doing that, but we're not doing that with this couple. So when is this really ideal? If you have longevity in your family, so if you have these, mid 90s, it might make sense for you to defer to age 70. If you have other income sources, whether it's rental income properties or you've got some business income, RSPs, RIFs, pension plans, all these things, that might make sense to defer to CPP to 70, and you want to reduce the risk of outliving your money. We'll get into what that means in a second. So here's a strategy for a couple, and this is sort of the basis for this whole video. One spouse is going to defer to age 70, and it's the higher income spouse that will so it's very specific. The higher income spouse will defer to age 70, and the lower income spouse will take CPP at 60. Now, I know many of you are saying, nobody takes CPP at 60. That's a sucker's move to do that. But I'm going to show you the math, and you're going to be surprised by it, okay? So why we're doing this? Because we want to balance the longevity risk, meaning we want to hedge our bets, I guess, if you will, on someone passing too early. So let's dig into this. A little bit of a history or a reminder of what CPP really is and how much you get at what age. So at age 65 in 2025, the maximum CPP at age 65 is $1,433. Now, if you take it early at age 60, that's a permanent reduction of your CPP of 36% for your entire life. Some people ask, once I get to 65, does it automatically go to the 100%? No. If you take it early, it's permanently reduced by 36%. That number is $917 if you take it at 60. Now, if you wait and defer to age 70, you get a bonus, 42%, a permanent increase to your CPP. That's $2,034. Now, you can see at the bottom of the screen, the average CPP is only $808. So when I'm doing plans with people, they often will tell me, I'm getting 100% of my CPP. And so that might be true, but it's worth it for you to give a call to Canada Pension Plan and find out what are you actually expected to receive, because most people, as you can see, do not get $1,433. They're getting much less. So we want to make sure that in your plan, we know what your CPP is, because we could be way off giving you too much CPP in your retirement when really you might actually only qualify for much less. Okay, so let's now look at some of the sort of strategy involved. Using CPP pension income splitting. So what is that? CPP pension sharing allows couples to split their CPP income for tax purposes. It's not actual payments that you're sharing. The amount available to share is based on how many years the couple live together during their contributory period. So this is really key. It's being together for a long time and contributing your CPP, you're going to be able to share more on your tax return. So why does this help? Kind of give it away, a tax return. It reduces your overall tax burden when one spouse is in a higher tax bracket, and it can help both spouses qualify for income tested benefits like GIS. This is very important if you've got a low income, a combined family income. So let's look at when you should begin Not making your application, just like when should you start, at what age should you start taking your CPP? Well, you may want to time it around when other income sources are flowing into you. So let's talk about, for instance, RSPs, RIFs, lifts. This is income coming to you at specific times. Now, if you're doing an RSP meltdown, as we've said in many, many videos you can check out, I always forget, is it pointing there or pointing there? I can't remember. But when we're doing an RSP meltdown, we often defer CPP at age 70 to give us that window to draw down on your RSPs. So we'd want to examine, do you have RSPs? Because we might want to defer CPP. If you've got a large non-registered account, whether you receive an inheritance or you sold some real estate properties, but however you acquired it, but you've got a large non-registered account, and that is attracting taxation. When you add that onto your RSPs and your LIF income, maybe pension income, CPP, old age security, all that together, that creates a problem, and you don't want to have a clawback of your old age security. Primarily, a lot of you are, like, one of the key things you always ask me anyway is, we don't want to lose our old age security. What can we do to prevent that clawback? So it's something we pay attention to in every plan. So let's look at something else about coordinating benefits. We're talking about pension plans. If you've got a defined benefit pension plan and you're integrating CPP, old age security, and then RSP meltdown, you really need a retirement plan, because you want to have the most tax efficient withdrawal strategy you can find. And the only way, really, there are other ways. You can use Excel spreadsheets, and you can use some of the government websites to help you, but when you get into all of the things that we put into a plan, the years in which you have higher need for income, maybe you're purchasing a car in that year, or you're giving money to the kids, helping to pay for weddings, or that bucket list trip, there's going to be years where your income need is much less and then much higher, and it puts strain on your portfolio, and you'd want to know, how can you adjust your withdrawal strategy to accommodate all those different kinds of withdrawals and income sources. And so that's why I'm always saying to you guys, get a retirement plan. It's so worth your time and energy and your money. Guarantee you of that, that's for sure. Okay, maximize the years of contributions. So many of you want to retire early. Why not? You put in a lot of time, you've worked long hours, you've saved some money, and it's like, hey, it's time for me to retire. The one drawback here is that if you retire too early, you could see a reduction of your CPP, right? Because your CPP is based off of your highest contributions over a 39-year period between age 18 and 65. So there are years where you're going to have dropout periods. So if you've had children, there's called a child rearing period, where you could just tell the government, hey, I had kids, and they're going to accommodate you for that, and that means that you won't. When you have children, often you sacrifice an income, right? Where you're out of work or low income, and so the government recognizes that, and so they're going to make an accommodation for you in that calculation. And then low income years, when you're 18, 19 years of age, 20 years of age, you're in university or college, and folding sweaters and jeans in the mall, right? You had a low income. So those are periods that might drop out, because those were some low periods over that 39-year period. So here are some strategies for you. Continue working and contributing to age 60 if you have not reached 39 years. So the key here is, make sure you've been contributing to your CPP for 39 years. You got to figure that out, and at least work to age 60 in that environment. Avoid early retirement. As I said before, if you, let's say, retire at age 60, and the CPP maximum benefit is based off of working and contributing to age 65, that means you're going to give them some zeros in that calculation, because you're not working at 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So you're going to be adding a bunch of zeros to that low income number, and so that's going to lower your CPP number. So you got to be careful about the enticement of working or retiring too early. It might impact your CPP. So let's consider the survivor benefit impact. Now, this is a touchy subject. I did this video up here about, is CPP a ripoff? And you guys went to town on that video. I'm so glad. and grateful about your comments. So comment in this section of the video. I want to continue that conversation. I'm of the mind that I just do not like CPP, survivor benefits, the way it's structured right now. So here's how it works, and I hope you all agree with me on this. So when one survivor passes away, the survivor may is a key word here, receive a combined CPP benefit subject to the cap. And the maximum combined benefit can't exceed the maximum individual CPP benefit. So that means the maximum benefit for an individual is $1,433 in 2025. Let's say a spouse is receiving $1,000, okay? And their spouse passes away. So the survivor benefit here would top them up to the $1,433. It's not getting 100% of that deceased spouse is CPP. It's only going to push the surviving spouse up to the maximum individual amount. This is the part that I don't agree. I think if we are contributing, if you just looked at, put it aside and said, if you were to put money, this is my money manager side of the business, because you all know that I manage money for my clients as well. But if you were depositing money systematically every paycheck into an account that was deferred, tax deferred, similarly to an RSP, and then later on when it comes time for you to receive that, right, this is kind of like a pension to you, that you would be able to have that money and then pass that entire pension, if you wanted to, over to your spouse. Some pensions do 100%, some pensions do 66 and 2/3. Each plan is different, but the idea is that a large part of that gets passed to the survivor for their entire life. CPP doesn't work that way. You could lose almost all of your spouse's CPP because you're at the maximum. So all that money, it's gone. I don't agree. I think that's wrong. I think it should go to the survivor. And I think it's just government's taking money from us in those environments, which I don't agree. What do you think? Put your comments below. I want to hear it. I just love hearing your comments. So let's dig into this one and let's shake the government a little bit. Give them some, hey, this is what we'd love to see happen. We never know. It might work. It might happen. So here's a strategy. If one spouse already receives the maximum CPP and the survivor benefit adds very little for that spouse, then in this case, it might be better for the lower income spouse to start their CPP early, while the higher income earner spouse delays till age 70, and that really provides a higher lifetime income security in this strategy, and it's going to work brilliantly. Let me show you the math as we get into this. So the next thing, well, it's going to be after this, but the next thing you want to look at is break-even analysis. So when we do retirement plans, we're actually sharing with a couple. Here's what happens if you take CPP at this age. Here's how much money compared to taking it at a different age. And we actually measure it side by side. So it's not us just saying, hey, we did the analysis, take it at 67. We're actually showing you, here's what happens if you take it at this age. Not just the income that you receive over your lifetime, but what's the impact on taxation? What's the impact on your estate values? How much money you're going to leave behind? Because when you make one change to your plan, especially on government benefits, it affects everything else. So we show you that, and I'll show you an example of that in the next couple of slides. So what do you want to examine when you're looking at CPP analysis is what's your expected life what's your expected life expectancy, the tax bracket differentials between two spouses, the availability of other income sources, and the need for income early versus later. And I'll just go back on that availability of other income sources. Sometimes one spouse has an income streams that dies off with them when they die as well, right? So you have to consider not just about what is the other income source, but what happens when the other spouse passes away. Because that, so for instance, let's say a spouse had a business, sort of like a passive business, and they were providing an income stream in retirement, $20,000-$30,000, not a lot, but say $20,000 to $30,000 throughout their retirement. But it really, they had to be around to do it. It wasn't just totally passive. They had to put some effort into it. And if they passed away, that income disappear. So it's not as though it continues on. So you have to also consider what kind of income and how is it derived, and how sustainable is it if one person passes away. So you definitely want to work with your planner to figure out the CPP break-even analysis for you and go through all these things. We do this with every client in our plans. So here's an example of what I was talking to you about actually comparing take CPP at 70, as you can see in that column, versus taking CPP at 65, and then what's the difference. So let's look, starting the top row, and we'll just go straight down on the right-hand column, the difference. So your lifetime personal tax is going to be $95,000 more if you take CPP at age 70. This makes sense because you have a higher income stream throughout your lifetime, so you're going to pay more tax. So that's the trade-off of deferring CPP to 70. Your lifetime government benefits, though, go up $275,000 over their lifetime if they defer to age 70. So when you're asking this question, should I take CPP at age 65 or should I take at 70, we can actually show you all these different metrics to help you make a good decision. The financial assets at your death, you can see you're going to have $53,000 more if you take CPP at age 70. Why? Well, because you have a higher CPP coming to you throughout your lifetime. So that means you don't have to lean on your investments as much because you've got more income coming on this indexed. This is really great. Your CPP goes up with inflation, so you don't really need to lean into your other income sources like your financial retirement assets. Okay, so your real assets, such as your house, has no impact on CPP. So when you add up the total assets, the difference there is $53,000. That's just cash, right, that we just mentioned before. But you see here what's the estate before tax and then the estate after tax. You can see you've got slightly more money if you take CPP at age 70 versus if you didn't. But the real benefit here is how much more Canada Pension Plan you received over this. And that was $275,000 more because you deferred CPP at age 70. So we can actually share this with you when we do your plans. It's really cool. Okay, one of the other things you want to consider is old age security clawback. So by deferring your CPP and drawing down on your RSPs earlier reduces your taxable income later because your RSP, or in this case your RIF balance, is much less. That means your minimum that you have to take out of your RIF will be much less, so that your income will be much less later on. And so we want to make sure we're avoiding that threshold of, in this case, $93,454. That's where the old age security clawback begins. So let's give you some insight as to what it really means. So a clawback applies when your income exceeds $93,454, and for every dollar that you're above that, you will be clawed back 15 cents. So the maximum old age security pension as of 2025 is $8,732, and that amount of the clawback is based on the previous year's tax return. So that's how that works, okay? So it's really important for you to see that when you're doing your withdrawal strategy and you have all these combined incomes, that we're trying to avoid you losing your old age security. And again, I mentioned earlier, you all want me to make sure that you don't lose your old age security. So the great thing about the Canada Pension Plan is it's one of the only retirement assets that is indexed for inflation, right? So your RSP is not indexed for inflation. It's all on you and how you invest your money. Same with your TFSA. Same with your LIF. Your LIF payment, goes up each year the same way as a RIF would go, and it's based off of your age. But it's not being automatically adjusted for inflation. You have to manage that money yourself. So the Canada Pension Plan is increasing the CPP. It's indexed. Some years it goes up way more than what it was during 2020, as we all know what that year. I want to avoid using that word so I don't get canceled here. But it's a great thing about the Canada Pension Plan is it goes up with inflation. So it's an inflation-adjusted income source for you, so this protects your purchasing power all the way through your retirement. Okay, so let's look at summarizing all this. Strategy is delay to age 70, have a maximum benefit of 42% higher on your CPP, and it's great for healthy individuals with longevity, really old ages into your 90s, okay? You get pension sharing. This will lower your household tax bill, and it's great for couples with an income disparity. So one spouse has much higher income than the other spouse. Coordinate with your RSP and your TFSA, so your withdrawal strategy, that meltdown of your RSPs, it's perfect to be able to optimize your tax brackets when you can defer your CPP to allow yourself to do the withdrawals on your RSPs. So if anybody's got a large RSP balance and some big non-registered accounts, you are definitely wanting to defer your CPP to age 70 if you're healthy. Maximum contribution years, you want to boost your lifetime CPP payout by working and contributing the maximum to your CPP over that 39-year period. And those not at a max entitlement. So it's, if you're already not at the maximum entitlement, it's great if you can boost this, right? So if you're already at work 39 years, maximum contributions, there's nothing more really you can do there. But if you haven't worked long enough or contributed enough, you should continue to. I shouldn't say should. There's lots of arguments, as you know. When I talked about this video, I give you my own thoughts about when to take CPP, and sometimes it's about not just about the math. Sometimes it's about, you know what, I just want to take my CPP and be quiet and live my life and move on. I may get less, but I'm more concerned about living my life, make a decision, and move on. So part of that decision, part of that thought has to go into the decision as well. Custom break-even analysis. Hey, make sure when you get your plan done, you ask your advisor, can you show us what the math would look like? Just give us some numbers. When do we get the maximum benefits here? Obviously 70 if you took it both at 70, but if you took a strategy, which was what we're talking about here, I'm going to go into the math in a second, of 60 and 70, show us that and why it works for us. And you should get that from your advisor when you're doing a plan. Avoiding old age clawback. You want to protect your old age security benefits, and this is especially true of higher household incomes. You are struggling to maintain all your OAS. And CPP is inflation adjusted, so this is really great for your long-term retirement income. Okay, so let's go into a case example. How are we doing so far, by the way? Remember to like and share this video. Put your comments below. It's really helpful for the algorithm of the video, and it's nice to see, by the way. So it's a great way for you to be able to say, hey, thanks for this video. So let's talk about John and Mary. They're both age 60. John's got 600,000 in RSP, and he's got 50,000 in a TFSA. And Mary's got 200,000 in an RSP and 50,000 in a TFSA, and they want a combined after-tax income or gross income of $70,000 throughout their retirement. Now, you might see yourself in this because those numbers are pretty common when I'm doing plans. Having 800,000 to $1.5 million, usually we see that very, very common in retirement. Yes, there are people that tell me, what about the people that have lesser incomes? But if you have less of an income, it's not a tax problem, it's an income problem. And that is a completely separate video. In this case, we're talking about these people have a tax issue and trying to control their incomes and not lose money from old age security. So that's mainly what I see every day with people, and that's what they're asking me to talk about. So we're going to use this couple and go through the math and show you exactly how this works. So buckle up, because this is really revealing. It's really interesting. Here is a chart, and we're going to go through this. I'm going to explain these three different scenarios. You can see the top left-hand corner where I go into the legend there, and I'll explain each one. So here we go. So this is strategy one. This is the blue line. This would start with both Mary and John taking CPP at 60. Now, if they do that, they're going to have $18,480 per year in total CPP benefits beginning at age 60. The amount remains flat in this chart anyway, throughout the retirement, because we're not really showing the impact of the indexing. We just want to make this as like trying to compare everything as best as we can, keep it easy to compare. So this is just a straight line, $18,480 per year. Now the downside of taking the CPP at 60 is you have a permanent reduction of the CPP benefit of 36% for their entire retirement. And the implication of this, of course, is it's best for a couple if you need the income and you have a shorter life expectancy. But it's very costly over time because you're losing a lot of money if you don't do it differently. And what would be different? Well, strategy number 2, a mixed timing approach. This is that orange line. So Mary is taking CPP at 60. John's taking CPP at 70. Mary at age 60 is going to receive $6,720 per year. John delays his CPP to age 70, and he'll have a much higher payment. He's going to receive $23,856 per year. So the total income jumps dramatically to $30,576 annually. This is like a sweet spot for their retirement. This is specific to this example. It may not be your example, but what you ought to do is get your sweet spot for your retirement plan from your advisor. So early income for one spouse plus higher income for the other spouse, and it also increases the survivor benefit for Mary's protection. So a great strategy. This balances the early access of needing money early on, so between 60 and 70. And it provides the best mix, I think, for an average couple. Now, when I say average, it means like they have this average spend of $70,000. We're not talking about $150,000 per year or $100,000, just $70,000. So that's like an average kind of retirement. These people are not traveling the world. They're taking a vacation, going to Florida. They might even be able, on $70,000, might even be able to spend a couple months there in Florida as well, or Arizona, or wherever it is you go in retirement. But it's kind of like an average, pretty cool lifestyle in their retirement. So now strategy number 3, this is the green line. This is what happens if you both delay to age 70. You all know what's going on here. There's a maximum benefit going on, right? So it's the highest income. Problem is there's no CPP between 60 to 70. But when they do start their CPP, it's $37,488 combined. This is the highest income they're going to get from a Canada Pension Plan. So this is the most income over the long haul. Throughout their retirement, this is assuming, of course, they're going to be living into the late 80s and 90s. The downside is that they have no income, at least from Canada Pension Plan, between age 60 and 70. And so this is going to require you needing to have to use other assets. So in particular, this is great if you wanted to do an RSP meltdown, because then you have this decade of being able to draw down on your RSPs, which would be awesome. Tax planning around old age security so you don't lose any of that through a clawback, and the survivor benefit needs. Very, very important. Okay, again, another way here, we'll get into some math. So you've got John. If he were to take his CPP at 65, he'd receive $1,400 a month. And back to that screen of like having $600,000, $50,000 for John, and then, but what we're adding in here now is the CPP. Now, if Mary were to take it at 65, she'd have $800 a month. So now let's look at what would happen at different ages. So if John were to start at age 60, he'd get $980 a month. Mary would get $560 a month. At 65, just mentioned the $1,400 and $800, and at 70, the almost $2,000 for John, and just over $1,100 for Mary. Now, what's really cool is the next slide. What happens? How much money cumulative do this couple really get if they do this kind of strategy? So if they both take CPP at age 60, their combined CPP over, we're assuming they're living to age 90, would be $617,000. So about $524,000 after tax. if they do the strategy of John taking CPP at age 70, Mary taking it at 60, it's about $700,000 in combined CPP benefits, about close to $600,000 after tax. Of course, if they delay to 70, that's a maximum benefit of $732,000 or about $622,000 after tax. Now, what is really interesting to see here is the distance between the mixed strategy to both the deferring to age 70 is not that far. And that kind of gets me excited, because often people think that if we take it before 70, if we wait till 70, we're going to get the most amount of money, but they don't really know just how much more they're getting. And so in this case, I really like this strategy because it's not that far away from the maximum that they would get if they deferred to age 70. And to me, that kind of makes sense. This idea of building in this long-term higher income stream for John, protecting Mary, because presumably men pass earlier than women. Not presumably, statistically men do. And so we're protecting Mary survivor benefits here. So it's really an interesting way of looking at it. Okay, so what's the strategic insight about this? Why does this work? Mary takes CPP at 60 and provides early income when they needed it because they didn't have income coming in other than RSP meltdown. She's at a lower income earner, so so the penalty from starting early isn't that painful, or we'll say impactful. If John delays or defers to age 70, it increases this secure inflation-adjusted income stream, and it's great for Mary as a survivor's benefit as well. Now, the other here is it provides this opportunity to do the meltdown of the RSPs or the RIF meltdown. And so it covers your income needs until CPP kicks in. It lowers future RIF withdrawal, so the OAS clawback, so there isn't a higher tax later on when the RIF minimum kicks in at age 72. You have to convert at 71 to a RIF, and then your first income stream can begin at age 72. And if you have less money in your RIF at that time, it's going to be a lower amount of money that has to come out. So perfect timing. Reduces your overall lifetime tax burden and covers your income needs until the full CPP kicks in. So here's a tip for your old age security planning as well. So if John and Mary withdraw $35,000 each out of their RSPs between 60 and 70 years of age, it'll keep them below the old age security clawback zone, which is going to be more, you have to pay more attention to that in your 70s and 80s, because that's typically when you've got these higher income streams coming in. It's going to smooth their income across their retirement. And when you are converting your RSPs, taking the money out, and likely you're not spending it and you're going to deposit it to TFSA. So I often see that, by the way. I see people not touching their TFSAs, or very rarely touching their, where I see they might take money out is if let's say they're doing a car purchase and they're 70 years of age, and they'll take more money from their TFSA rather than their RSP to keep their income their income tax much lower. Okay, so here's the recommended plan again. John takes CPP at 70, Mary takes it at 60. They're going to draw down $70,000 per year out of their RSPs between age 60 to 70. They're going to deposit to their TFSAs the money that they're not spending. And if they do need money, they're going to draw from their TFSA to keep that taxable income low. They're going to begin CPP pension income sharing once both of them are receiving CPP. And of course, this strategy helps for the survivor benefit for Mary later on. End of our video. You made it all the way to the end. I'm very grateful that you stuck around for this. I have a question for you. Does your retirement plan optimize for CPP? So what am I asking you? I'm asking you if you've gotten a plan done, which many people don't have a plan. If you've just said, they gave you this 65, take CPP at 65. And it wasn't really a discussion. It was kind of like the default output of their software, and they just stuck with it and they gave you the drawdown. So has anybody bothered to give you an optimal CPP strategy for you based on who you are and your ages and the amount of money that you have in retirement assets and the age you want to retire and so on? If you haven't had that done, you're really missing out, because I just showed you how the difference could be 100,000, could be even more than that, depending on how much money you have in play during your retirement. So I would encourage you to make sure you get your CPP done properly in your plan, so you can have the most optimal tax efficient retirement plan available in retirement. So thanks for sticking around and watching this video. Remember to like and share this video. Put your comments below. I love reading your comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, and be well.